In a single night of unprecedented fury, the rules of engagement in the Middle East have been shattered forever. Under direct coordination from Tehran, Hezbollah, Iran's most powerful ally, has unleashed a massive barrage of over 1,500 rockets, targeting one of Israel's most secretive and strategically vital military installations, the SDOT MICHA Airbase. This is not a random attack. SDOT MICHA is no ordinary base. It houses critical missile depots and, according to multiple intelligence reports, forms a cornerstone of Israel's strategic deterrent capability. Tonight, that cornerstone was rocked to its core. Wave after wave of rockets slammed into the heavily defended site. Israel's vaunted multi-layered air defense system, Iron Dome, David Sling, and Arrow batteries was pushed to the absolute limit. Multiple impacts were reported across the base, triggering massive fires and disrupting operations at a facility long considered untouchable. As smoke rises over central Israel, the shockwaves are already reaching Washington. President Donald Trump now finds himself cornered in a rapidly escalating political and military crisis. With American interests at stake and his closest ally under heavy fire, the question everyone is asking is simple. Can the United States afford to stay on the sidelines, or will this be the spark that drags America deeper into a devastating regional war? This is the night the axis of resistance drew a new red line, and the world will never be the same. How did Hezbollah, backed by Iranian command and control, successfully launch over 1,500 rockets in a single coordinated assault on Israel's highly sensitive SDOT MICHA airbase? What advanced weapons and saturation tactics were used to overwhelm Israel's multi-layered defense systems, including Iron Dome and Arrow missiles? How is President Trump reacting as this crisis explodes, and why is he now facing a severe political nightmare in Washington? And most importantly, what does this massive attack mean for the shifting balance of power in the Middle East and the future of global order? All these critical questions will be answered in depth in today's explosive analysis. If you want to stay ahead of the biggest geopolitical shifts, hit the like button right now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe this attack marks the beginning of a new era in the region? We read every comment. Let's move directly into the military anatomy of this unprecedented operation. Under explicit operational command from Tehran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Hezbollah executed a meticulously coordinated mass rocket and missile barrage that will be studied for years to come. In a single night spanning less than 3 hours, more than 1,500 projectiles rained down on SDOT MICHA Airbase, one of Israel's most guarded strategic installations located in central Israel, approximately 100 kilometers from the Lebanese border. The assault was divided into 4 distinct, overlapping waves. The first wave launched at 2:15 local time with over 400 short-range unguided rockets, mainly Katyusha and Fajr, 3 systems designed to flood early warning radars and force immediate activation of point defense batteries. 15 minutes later, the second wave of 350 medium-range Fajr, 5 in Zelzal, 2 rockets followed, carrying 100 to 170 kilogram warheads aimed at drawing defensive fire and creating electronic noise across the battlefield. By the third wave, the character of the attack shifted decisively. Roughly 450 precision-guided Fateh 110 ballistic missiles, upgraded with Iranian inertial GPS guidance kits, targeted hardened infrastructure, including command bunkers, radar arrays, and above-ground missile depots. A smaller fourth wave of longer-range systems, including reported modernized Scud variants, struck deeper underground storage complexes believed to house components of Israel's Jericho missile force. This was not random bombardment. It was classic asymmetric saturation warfare executed at industrial scale. Hezbollah deliberately mixed cheap, high-volume rockets with a smaller number of guided systems to create an overwhelming barrage effect. Iranian real-time intelligence provided through drone overflights and satellite-linked command nodes in Tehran allowed Hezbollah operators to dynamically adjust trajectories, exploit known coverage gaps in central Israel, and focus subsequent salvos on weakened sectors. The entire operation was synchronized through encrypted fiber optic and radio links, ensuring that launch teams across southern Lebanon fired in precise sequence rather than in a disorganized volley. Now consider the defensive side. Israel's multi-layered air defense network Iron Dome for short-range threats, David's Sling for medium range, and Arrow 2, 3 for ballistic missiles was pushed beyond its design limits. In the opening 90 minutes alone, the Iron Dome fired an estimated 420 Tamir interceptors. Each Tamir costs approximately $50,000, while the average Katyusha or Fajr 3 rocket costs under $1,000, an economic mismatch that Hezbollah weaponized with ruthless efficiency. David's Sling and Arrow batteries engaged dozens of incoming Fateh 110s, but the sheer volume created a salvo overload scenario. The system's fire control computers could not prioritize and allocate interceptors fast enough against simultaneous threats arriving from multiple azimuths and altitudes. Compounding the problem was geography. SDOT MICHA lies deep inside Israel's interior, outside the primary engagement envelope, optimized for northern border threats. The Green Pine early warning radar on site was itself targeted and reportedly damaged in the third wave, blinding parts of the Arrow system at the exact moment precision strikes began. Satellite imagery and local reports later confirmed multiple impact craters across the base's sensitive zones. Fires raged near underground Jericho missile silos, launch rail infrastructure was crippled, and at least 2 Arrow launchers were destroyed on their paths. Israeli officials have acknowledged limited penetration of the base's perimeter defenses, though full damage assessment remains classified. In purely military terms, the operation achieved its core objective. It temporarily degraded Israel's strategic second strike capability by forcing the evacuation of key personnel, damaging support infrastructure, and exposing the practical limits of even the most advanced layered defense when confronted with mass, low-cost saturation. Hezbollah did not need to destroy every silo. It only needed to demonstrate that no target inside Israel is truly untouchable. This single night of coordinated fire has rewritten the tactical playbook for the entire region. The numbers, the timing, and the precision were not accidental. They were the direct result of years of Iranian-Hezbollah doctrinal integration. And the shock waves from SDOT MICHA are only now beginning to register in Washington. At the heart of this operation lies a sophisticated arsenal that perfectly embodies Iran's philosophy of self-reliant, asymmetric warfare. Every rocket and missile fired that night was either designed in Iran, manufactured with Iranian technology, or significantly upgraded through Iranian engineering expertise transferred to Hezbollah. This is not the story of a proxy force using outdated Soviet-era leftovers. It is the demonstration of a mature indigenous missile program that has flourished under decades of international sanctions. Begin with the foundation, Hezbollah's short-range rocket inventory. The workhorses are the Iranian-designed Fajr 3 and the modernized Katyusha variants. These 107mm and 122mm systems feature simple solid fuel motors, steel tube launchers, and high explosive fragmentation warheads weighing between 8 and 18 kilograms. Their beauty lies in their extreme simplicity. With minimal electronics, they can be mass-produced in underground facilities, stored for years without maintenance, and launched from mobile, truck-mounted pods or even improvised rails hidden in civilian areas. Iran has refined the propellant chemistry to achieve consistent thrust and improved dispersion patterns, turning what was once an area saturation tool into a reliable first strike suppressor. These rockets travel up to 20 kilometers with enough accuracy to blanket a target zone the size of an airbase, forcing defenders to expend expensive interceptors on low-value threats. Moving up the spectrum, the medium-range systems reveal even greater technological maturity. The Fajr 5 and Zelzal 2 represent Iran's leap into extended-range artillery rockets. The Fajr 5, with its 333 mm caliber and 7.5 kg warhead, reaches 75 kilometers while maintaining a circular error probable under 50 meters when fitted with basic inertial guidance. The Zelzal 2 pushes further with a 610 mm diameter, 600 kilogram payload, and range exceeding 200 kilometers. Iran's engineers replaced older liquid fuel engines with high-energy solid propellants developed domestically, drastically reducing launch preparation time from hours to minutes. These rockets also incorporate composite casings that reduce weight while increasing structural integrity under high-G maneuvers. The result is a weapon that can be fired in rapid salvos from deep inside Lebanon, yet still deliver devastating kinetic energy deep into central Israel. The true game changer, however, is the precision-guided ballistic category led by the Fateh 110 family and its derivatives. This solid-fuel, road-mobile, short-range ballistic missile is entirely Iranian in origin. First unveiled in the early 2000s, it has undergone continuous upgrades. Advanced inertial navigation, coupled with GPS-assisted mid-course correction and terminal seeker options. The latest variants feature maneuverable re-entry vehicles capable of pulling 15G turns in the final descent phase, making them extremely difficult for traditional interceptors to track. With a 300 kilogram high explosive or submunition warhead and a range of 300 kilometers, the Fateh 110 can strike fixed infrastructure with surgical precision while remaining low-cost enough for mass deployment. Iranian technicians have shared the guidance package, blueprints, and production know-how with Hezbollah, allowing the group to assemble and maintain these systems locally. This technology transfer is the cornerstone of Tehran's self-sufficiency by proxy doctrine. What sets Iran's missile ecosystem apart is the deliberate emphasis on cost asymmetry as a core design principle. A single Fajr 3 rocket costs roughly $800 to produce in Iranian factories. A Fateh 110 variant runs between $15,000 and $25,000, depending on the guidance suite. Compare that to Israel's defensive arsenal. Each Tamir interceptor for the Iron Dome exceeds $50,000, while Arrow 3 anti-ballistic missiles cost between $2 million and $3 million per round. Iran and Hezbollah have weaponized this economic reality. By flooding the sky with affordable, mass-produced munitions, they force the defender into an unsustainable expenditure ratio, sometimes reaching 5-0-1 or worse. This is not accidental. It is the deliberate outcome of Iran's missile doctrine, developed since the 1980s Iran-Iraq War, refined through combat experience in Syria, and now fully matured. Technologically, the systems also exploit specific vulnerabilities in Western design defenses. Israeli radars such as the EL-M2084, used by both Iron Dome and David Sling, excel at tracking high-speed ballistic threats, but struggle when saturated by mixed salvos, arriving at varying velocities and altitudes. The Fateh 110's terminal maneuverability further complicates the fire control solution, as the interceptor must constantly recalculate its trajectory. Moreover, Iran has integrated low observable materials and electronic countermeasures into newer variants, reducing radar cross-section and jamming early warning signals during the critical boost phase. None of this capability emerged in a vacuum. Iran's missile program is a masterclass in self-reliance under extreme pressure. After the 1979 revolution and subsequent arms embargoes, Iranian engineers reverse-engineered Scud missiles obtained from North Korea and Libya, then systematically replaced foreign components with domestic alternatives. Today, every stage, from solid propellant mixing to composite motor casings, inertial measurement units, and even the microelectronics and guidance kits, is produced inside vast underground complexes immune to airstrikes. This industrial base has allowed Iran not only to equip its own forces, but to export know-how to allies without violating international sanctions. Hezbollah's ability to maintain and fire these advanced systems is direct proof that Tehran has successfully built a parallel military-industrial ecosystem outside Western control. In essence, the weapons used against SDOT MICHA represent far more than hardware. They embody a complete technological philosophy: affordable, survivable, scalable, and lethal. By mastering solid fuel propulsion, precision guidance, and swarm tactics, Iran has turned the traditional logic of expensive Western defense systems on its head. What happened at SDOT MICHA was not the triumph of brute numbers alone. It was the validation of decades of patient, sanctions-defying innovation that has now reached operational maturity on the battlefield. Is cheap mass firepower now more powerful than expensive high-tech defense? And are we entering a new era of warfare? Subscribe for more real insights into modern warfare, and tell me in the comments which weapon system shocked you the most. As the fire still burned at SDOT MICHA, the shock quickly traveled across the Atlantic and landed squarely in Washington. The United States, despite its massive military presence in the region, found itself in an awkward and increasingly uncomfortable position. Two carrier strike groups led by the USS Abraham Lincoln and USS Gerald R. Ford had been positioned in the Eastern Mediterranean and Arabian Sea precisely to deter escalation and protect Israeli interests. Yet the speed and scale of the Hezbollah barrage exposed a harsh reality. Even with advanced American assets nearby, real-time protection of deep inland Israeli bases proved extremely difficult when faced with coordinated, low-cost saturation attacks from Lebanon. In the immediate hours following the assault, the White House issued a carefully worded statement condemning the attack as unprovoked aggression and reaffirming America's ironclad commitment to Israel's security. President Trump personally called Prime Minister Netanyahu, pledging additional intelligence sharing and expedited delivery of interceptor munitions. However, behind closed doors, senior Pentagon officials expressed deep frustration. The attack highlighted the limits of U.S. forward-deployed forces in containing proxy warfare. American destroyers equipped with Aegis systems could theoretically engage ballistic threats, but they were positioned primarily to protect naval assets and sea lanes, not to provide blanket coverage for every Israeli installation deep in the interior. This operational gap quickly translated into a political crisis for the Trump administration. Domestic critics, including influential voices within the Republican Party and Democratic opposition, began questioning why billions of dollars in annual military aid to Israel had not prevented such a humiliating breach. Some lawmakers openly asked whether the United States was being dragged into yet another open-ended Middle East conflict at a time when American resources were already stretched thin by commitments elsewhere. Inside the Pentagon, there were quiet discussions about the sustainability of extended deterrence when adversaries could exploit cost asymmetry so effectively. Trump himself appeared visibly irritated in public briefings. While maintaining strong rhetorical support for Israel, he emphasized his America First doctrine, reminding audiences that U.S. forces were not an unlimited insurance policy. Reports suggest heated conversations occurred between Washington and Jerusalem over the appropriate level of American involvement. Netanyahu reportedly pressed for more direct U.S. strikes on Hezbollah infrastructure and even Iranian command nodes, but the administration hesitated, wary of igniting a wider regional war that could disrupt global energy markets and draw in additional actors. Geopolitically, the SDOT MICHA attack accelerated several dangerous trends. It further strained the already tense U.S.-Israel relationship by exposing the practical boundaries of American power projection. Allies in the Gulf, who had quietly relied on the U.S. security umbrella, began privately reassessing their own vulnerability to Iranian-backed proxies. Meanwhile, The attack boosted the morale and credibility of the axis of resistance. Tehran and Hezbollah portrayed the operation as proof that even the combined might of the US and Israel could not guarantee absolute safety for strategic Israeli assets. The incident also complicated Trump's broader diplomatic agenda. With ongoing efforts to manage tensions over the Strait of Hormuz and potential negotiations with Iran, the administration now faced pressure from pro-Israel hardliners demanding a tougher stance, while isolationist factions warned against deeper entanglement. The risk of miscalculation loomed large. Any visible increase in direct U.S. military support for retaliatory operations could be interpreted by Iran as a green light for further escalation through its network of proxies, potentially targeting American bases or commercial shipping. In strategic terms, Washington confronted a classic dilemma of extended deterrence in the age of asymmetric warfare. The United States possesses unmatched conventional power, yet its ability to shield distant allies from sustained, low-cost barrages is constrained by geography, economics, and the political cost of escalation. The SDOT MICHA strike did not destroy America's military dominance, but it sharply illustrated its limits when adversaries refused to fight on conventional terms. As the dust settled, the Trump administration found itself walking a delicate tightrope, projecting strength to reassure Israel and regional partners, while desperately trying to avoid being pulled into a conflict whose parameters were being dictated from Tehran and Beirut rather than from the White House. This tension between rhetorical commitment and operational reality has now become the defining feature of America's geopolitical posture in the Middle East following the events at SDOT MICHA. Is the United States losing control over regional conflicts, or is this just a temporary strategic setback? If you follow global power shifts, don't forget to subscribe and share your honest opinion below. No bias, just logic. Beyond the hardware and tactics, the SDOT MICHA operation revealed something far more profound: the decisive power of human will forged through decades of resistance. At its core, this attack was not merely a military maneuver, but a manifestation of deep ideological conviction and national resilience that no amount of advanced weaponry can replicate or easily overcome. For Hezbollah fighters and their Iranian backers, the decision to launch over 1,500 rockets was rooted in a long-cultivated ethos of resistance, mukawama. This is not abstract rhetoric. It stems from a collective memory of occupation, repeated conflicts, and the belief that standing firm against superior military force is both a religious duty and a path to dignity. Many Hezbollah operatives view the fight not as a temporary dispute over borders, but as an existential struggle to protect Lebanese sovereignty, Palestinian rights, and the broader Islamic Ummah from what they perceive as aggressive expansionism. This mindset transforms ordinary volunteers into disciplined warriors, willing to operate under constant threat of Israeli airstrikes, living in underground networks, and accepting high personal risk for the collective cause. Iran's role amplifies this spirit. Despite years of economic sanctions, diplomatic isolation, and repeated military threats, Tehran has instilled in its allies a narrative of self-reliance and moral superiority. Iranian leaders repeatedly frame the conflict as a battle between authentic regional sovereignty and externally imposed hegemony. This narrative resonates deeply because it taps into historical grievances from foreign interventions to perceived double standards in international law. The result is an intangible but powerful force. Fighters who believe they are on the right side of history, defending their homes and identity rather than serving distant powers. When Hezbollah commanders ordered the coordinated waves against SDOT MICHA, they did so with the confidence that their men would execute the mission precisely because they were motivated by something stronger than financial incentives or professional obligation. Contrast this with the dynamics on the other side. Israel's defense, while technologically sophisticated, relies heavily on external support, primarily from the United States, in the form of funding, intelligence, and diplomatic cover. This creates a structural vulnerability. When that support wavers or proves insufficient in real time, morale can fracture. Soldiers and civilians accustomed to technological superiority may experience psychological shock when low-cost rockets still penetrate layered defenses. Reports from inside Israel after the barrage described scenes of disrupted daily life, strained emergency services, and growing public anxiety about the sustainability of prolonged conflict. The dependence on borrowed power, advanced systems purchased or supplied from abroad, can erode the sense of self-determined destiny that fuels long-term resilience. History offers clear lessons here. Nations or movements that fight primarily with imported technology and conditional alliances often struggle to sustain momentum when costs rise or political winds shift. In contrast, groups anchored in deep ideological commitment and territorial defense have repeatedly demonstrated the ability to absorb punishment and continue operations. Hezbollah's fighters live among the population they claim to protect, drawing strength from community networks and a shared narrative of endurance. This embeddedness creates a feedback loop. Popular support reinforces fighter motivation, which in turn sustains operational effectiveness even under intense pressure. The SDOT MICHA strike exemplified this asymmetry of will. Hezbollah did not need to achieve total destruction of the base. By demonstrating that a strategically sensitive Israeli installation could be reached and hit, despite billions spent on defense, they delivered a psychological blow far exceeding the physical damage. For the axis of resistance, every successful launch reaffirms the belief that determination and preparation can neutralize material disadvantages. For their adversaries, each penetration raises uncomfortable questions about long-term sustainability and the true cost of maintaining regional dominance through superior firepower alone. Ultimately, the events at SDOT MICHA underscore a timeless truth in warfare. Technology multiplies force, but it is human spirit rooted in conviction, identity, and a sense of righteous purpose that determines endurance. Iran and Hezbollah have spent years cultivating this inner strength through education, propaganda, and combat experience. That cultivated willpower turned 1,500 rockets into more than projectiles. It turned them into symbols of defiance that continue to echo far beyond the smoke over central Israel. The events at SDOT MICHA represent far more than a localized military clash. They mark a significant acceleration in the reshaping of the global order, exposing the accelerating decline of unipolar dominance and the rise of a genuinely multipolar world. For decades, the United States positioned itself as the indispensable guarantor of security in the Middle East, using its military superiority and financial leverage to maintain a favorable status quo. The SDOT MICHA barrage directly challenged this assumption, when over 1,500 rockets, many guided by Iranian technology, penetrated Israel's defenses despite nearby American carrier groups and billions in annual aid. It demonstrated that regional actors could impose costs on U.S. allies without triggering decisive American intervention. This gap between Washington's rhetorical commitments and its actual ability to enforce outcomes has profound implications. It signals to allies and adversaries alike that American extended deterrence has practical limits when confronted with determined, low-cost, asymmetric strategies. This shift is accelerating the transition toward multipolarity. Powers that were once relegated to the sidelines, particularly Russia and China, are now playing more active and influential roles. Russia has provided diplomatic cover for Iran at the United Nations and maintained military technical cooperation that indirectly bolsters the axis of resistance. China, meanwhile, has deepened economic ties with Tehran through the Belt and Road Initiative and continues to purchase Iranian oil despite sanctions, offering Tehran a crucial financial lifeline. Both nations have skillfully positioned themselves as alternatives to Western dominance, quietly benefiting from Washington's entanglement in the region. Their growing influence reduces the effectiveness of unilateral U.S. sanctions and creates space for regional players to maneuver with greater freedom. The attack also undermines the credibility of Western-led security architectures. For years, Israel's layered defense systems were presented as the gold standard of modern military technology, a model that other U.S. partners might emulate. The partial failure at SDOT MICA, where cost-effective saturation tactics overwhelmed expensive interceptors, raises serious questions about the exportability and long-term viability of such systems in an era of proliferating precision munitions and swarm tactics. Nations watching from afar, from the Gulf states to Southeast Asia, are quietly reassessing their own defense strategies and hedging against over-reliance on American security guarantees. On a deeper level, the incident highlights the erosion of the post-Cold War rules-based international order as interpreted by Washington. When proxies backed by Iran can strike strategic targets inside Israel with relative impunity, it becomes harder for the United States to claim exclusive authority over defining legitimate self-defense or escalation thresholds. This creates opportunities for alternative narratives. Iran and its allies frame the operation as legitimate resistance against occupation and aggression, gaining sympathy in parts of the global South where historical grievances against Western intervention remain strong. The resulting narrative fragmentation weakens the moral and political cohesion that once underpinned American global leadership. Economically, the ripple effects are already visible. Uncertainty over the security of Israeli infrastructure and potential escalation in the Levant has contributed to volatility in global energy markets and shipping insurance rates. Should similar tactics be applied against critical maritime choke points in the future, the consequences for international trade could be severe. This reality forces major economies, especially those in Europe and East Asia, to diversify energy sources and supply chains, further diminishing the centrality of U.S.-centric security arrangements. Perhaps most significantly, the SDOT MICA operation serves as a case study in how determined regional coalitions can challenge established hierarchies without engaging in direct conventional war with a superpower. It validates the strategy of hybrid resistance, combining military pressure, ideological cohesion, and economic resilience as a viable path for states and non-state actors seeking to revise the balance of power. Other actors observing this dynamic may draw their own conclusions about the feasibility of similar approaches in different theaters, whether in the South China Sea, the Black Sea region, or elsewhere. In the end, what happened at SDOT MICA is not the end of American power, but a clear indication that the era of unchallenged unipolarity is closing. The world is moving toward a more contested, pluralistic order in which influence is measured not only by aircraft carriers and precision munitions, but also by the ability to sustain political will, build resilient alliances, and master asymmetric tools. Iran and Hezbollah have demonstrated one model for navigating this transition. How the United States and its partners adapt or fail to adapt will define the contours of global politics for the coming decades. As the smoke slowly clears over SDOT MICA airbase, one thing has become unmistakably clear. The Middle East, and by extension the global order, has entered a new and more unpredictable chapter. The coordinated launch of over 1,500 rockets by Hezbollah, directed with Iranian precision and resolve, was not merely another exchange of fire. It was a powerful demonstration that determination, careful preparation, and asymmetric strategy can successfully challenge even the most advanced military systems and long-standing assumptions of invulnerability. This single night carries several profound lessons that the world must internalize. First, technology alone does not guarantee security. No matter how sophisticated the defense, whether Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow, or American Aegis destroyers, it can be overwhelmed when confronted with intelligence saturation tactics, cost asymmetry, and unwavering human will. Billions of dollars invested in high-end interceptors prove vulnerable to rockets that cost a fraction of the price. True strength in modern warfare increasingly lies in the ability to combine affordable quantity with precision, rather than relying solely on expensive quality. Second, extended deterrence has its limits. The United States, despite its unmatched conventional power and carrier strike groups stationed nearby, could not prevent a strategic Israeli installation from being struck. This reality forces every nation under the American security umbrella to seriously reconsider the reliability of promises made from Washington when vital interests are tested under sustained pressure. Allies must now ask themselves whether dependence on external protection is sustainable in an era of hybrid and proxy warfare. Third, the power of ideological conviction and self-reliance cannot be underestimated. Hezbollah and Iran have shown that a deeply rooted sense of purpose, forged through years of sanctions, conflict, and resistance, can sustain operations that purely material calculations would deem impossible. Fighters motivated by a belief in defending sovereignty and dignity often display levels of endurance and creativity that money alone cannot buy. Fourth, the era of unchallenged unipolar dominance is fading. What we witnessed at SDOT MICHA is part of a broader global shift toward multipolarity, where regional actors, supported by rising powers like Russia and China, can reshape local realities and force even superpowers to recalculate their strategies. The old model of one nation setting all the rules is giving way to a more contested, pluralistic world. These lessons are not abstract theory. They carry direct consequences for policymakers in Washington, Jerusalem, Tehran, Beijing, and Moscow. They warn that ignoring the human and strategic dimensions of conflict while over-relying on technological superiority can lead to dangerous miscalculations. In the coming years, nations that adapt to this new reality by building genuine self-reliance, cultivating strong internal cohesion, and understanding the evolving nature of power will be better positioned to navigate the turbulent times ahead. The balance of power in the Middle East is shifting, and with it, the broader international system. Whether this leads to greater instability or eventually forces more realistic diplomatic engagement remains to be seen. What is certain is that the old certainties no longer hold. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think is the most important lesson from the SDOT MICHA operation? Does this attack truly mark the beginning of a new era in the Middle East, or is it just one chapter in a much longer struggle? How should the United States and Israel respond without falling into a wider war? Drop your honest thoughts and analysis in the comments section below. I read every single comment, and the best insights often spark our next videos. If this in-depth breakdown helped you understand the rapidly changing geopolitical landscape, please support the channel by hitting the like button right now. It really helps our content reach more people who need to see these critical perspectives. Share this video with friends and family who care about international affairs and the future of global power. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next update on these pivotal events. Thank you for watching until the end. Your time and attention mean everything. Stay informed, stay objective, and above all, stay vigilant in these historic times.